Thank you all for being here. My name is Arthur Camara. I work at Dapper Labs. I'm one of the people who started Dapper. I'm part of the founding team. And I've always worked with consumer products at Dapper. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about building for consumers on chain and how we started it all and how I started in my career back in 2017 with crypto, right? And I really started with CryptoKitties. How many of you have tried CryptoKitties, own a CryptoKitty? Okay, great. So I don't have to explain a lot, but basically if you don't know, and if you're watching this, on CryptoKitties you can buy and sell these kitties that are collectibles on chain, and you can breed them. So basically they have genetic material on chain, and you can breed them and create new cats that look like the parents. And you can find fancy cats on this app as well. So fancy cats are special cats that have a higher scarcity and rarity. So we launched this back in 2017, and it was a great way for people to start with crypto, right? And at the time, Roham had a pretty interesting insight of most of the technological revolutions, they start with entertainment apps, right? They start with games, they start with things that, consumer apps in general, right? So we decided to invest in consumer application in a game and bring up the first game to the blockchain. That's kind of like how we refer to ourselves. So that's why we put cats on the blockchain. We wanted to build consumer products because consumer products tend to attract stronger revolution in tech. If you go back to that time, back in 2016, 2017, how many people here were in crypto in 2016, 2017? Wow, quite a few of you. So you remember that it was the ICO craze of 2017. We had Ethereum, Cosmos, and so many other interesting projects launching. And if you looked at a crypto, there were barely crypto conferences at the time, but if you looked at the applications and things people were building, there wasn't anything focused on consumers, right? A few months before CryptoKitties, we had CryptoPunks launch, and that was actually a huge inspiration to us, but not much else, right? So we wanted to bring the first game to the blockchain, and we launched in Waterloo with an alpha. This version here I built back in the day before AI made this trivial, and today you could build that in 5 minutes, but it took me 3 days. And it was the first UI version of CryptoKitties. Obviously, we spent a lot more time writing the smart contracts. There was if you're into CryptoKitties, you can research and find the breeding smart contract, which was pretty interesting at the time. And we launched the first game on chain, and a lot of people learned about CryptoKitties back in that conference in Waterloo. And we started with building the simplest version we could, but at the same time, focusing on building community first. So we built that first simple UI and then went straight to an event, pretty much like this one, like ETH Denver, and promoted the CryptoKitties app. And that's a few of us on stage, myself, Benny that works with Jaden today, Jordan who works on Flow, he's an engineer on Flow, and then Fabiano who also has built in the Flow community. And at the time we hacked the system in a way because I didn't even have tickets to go to ETH Waterloo. We flew in last minute, we stood outside waiting for the organizers to let us in, and we kind of like hacked our way into this competition and ended up showcasing what we built and even being one of the finalists and winning the competition in ETH Waterloo was pretty fun and cool. And Vitalik was one of the judges at the time, so that was super fun. And why build consumer apps? Because consumer apps create new value, and especially with games and toys, they attract users to try it out and spread the word and get inspired, right? So the first time I noticed that something was clicking and people were talking about it, this was at the office at the elevator, and I saw this on the news. People collecting CryptoKitties just like Pokemon. And I was like, oh wow, we actually built something that people cared. At the time of ETH Waterloo, we were able to gather 600 people in a tiny, quote unquote, Telegram community. And then that community wrote about us and attracted some more people. And then at the time this got written, we had a couple of articles about us online and probably a community of around 5,000 people playing with CryptoKitties. And after this, we ended up breaking Ethereum, so to speak, because a third of the world's transaction at a certain point were CryptoKitties transactions, right? So that was pretty impressive. And the other thing that CryptoKitties and consumer apps do is that they inspire other people to build, right? So it's a great opportunity to connect with other builders. And this was the first and actually only ETH Denver event that I went to before this one, back in 2018. And you can see lots of people who built interesting things here, like the founders of OpenSea are in the corner here, Coinbase Wallet, the founder of Figma, Fabiano and Dieter. Dieter was remote, he's in the laptop here. Open Zeppelin, lots of people who were talking around that time about ERC 721, which is the standard that Dieter introduced, largely inspired by CryptoKitties, and that we were able to, in a setting like this one, create a small community that was able to agree on a few set of standards that everybody would follow. For example, there was no approval for ERC 721 before this meeting, and in a meeting with a group of people talking about it, we approved a few standards that live to this day, right? And other conferences got inspired by this early community as well, just such as NFT NYC that today attracts over 30,000 people per year, similar to ETH Denver. So this is almost like at the time of ETH Waterloo when we first introduced CryptoKitties, I honestly felt like we were late to the game. I didn't feel like I was early. Today it sounds like I was, but it felt like I was late. It felt like everybody knew so much about the space. So everybody was invested in one of those blockchains that was ICOing. And I was learning about it as we were building. And I felt like I had an opportunity to launch something cool, but I also felt like I was a newbie. And today, it might be the case that many people here, many people in the space feel like, oh, blockchain still or NFTs still, but if we think about it, we're still pretty early, right? And even though builders today might feel like they're late to the game, I still feel like it's just the beginning, right? There's a lot of things to be built in order for consumer apps to be for blockchain apps to be impacting our daily lives. And yeah, here are some of the things that came and got inspired by CryptoKitties directly or indirectly. You see people. Dapper was born out of CryptoKitties, and we built some interesting apps after this that I'll cover, and some other apps that other community members built were also largely influenced by something we started. So as builders, we have the opportunity to introduce something new that will inspire so many more. And in my mind, in order to make a difference and create a product that is impactful and brings a ton of value to the space, we've got to be deliberate and opinionated and focused. And I think we try to do that from the start with CryptoKitties. We were intentionally being funny. We were intentionally being different, colorful, right? We were intentionally being quirky. And you got to be quick to market and get signals early. So that the reason why we built it so fast and put it out there and work community first was very intentional as well. And you got to have an interesting hook and a product, right? People might have to see that value pretty early on, whether that's fun or a practical value or whatever that might be. So those are the things that we, to this day, try to apply at Dapper Labs when we build any of our products, right? And whether that's an entire product or a feature of a product, we try to apply all of these principles. And I'll expand a little bit on some of the product principles that I try to apply and chat with and try to advocate for inside the company, because I think they could be useful if you're trying to build a product today. So the first one I talked a little bit about in the beginning, that we had this vision of consumer apps are the things that bring mass adoption, are the things that inspire others, and consumer apps unlock new technology to advance, right? So you got to start with the why with anything you build. And that's one thing that we keep on top of, like PRDs when we build internal features on NBA Top Shot or a new product altogether. So you got to start with the why, and we try to apply that principle all the time. The second one is to cross the finish line often. Every time we see things like leaning towards the right side of this chart, we got to stop and say, wait a second, is there a way to build more like the first here? And it doesn't mean to rush things necessarily and put something out there that doesn't have any value, but it means actualizing your value all the time, as often as possible, maybe weekly, maybe monthly, depending on your product, but constantly, so that you get that initial value, even if it's not the full value, and you build momentum for the next stage. So that's a principle that we try to apply all the time at Dapper. The third one, which is harder, easy to fall into the question mark scenario, is to seek bold discoveries. So if you don't know exactly where to go and you're trying two different versions, don't try two similar versions. Try very different things, right? Bold discoveries, something you want to go right or left, not tiny optimization, especially early on when you're building consumer apps, right? You got to be trying to find something that is truly meaningful and not a 0.5% improvement, right? So you're trying to get that big delta that will prove to you where the direction is. In CryptoKitties' case, we were very undecided back in the day about the look of the cats, right? They look strange. And we had an internal competition between the designers, and we had a lot of different opinions. People were not very confident about which way to go. And what we did is, for that very first version, very simple version, we picked the most strange item, the cat attributes, that's how we call them, the features of the cat, the ugliest color, the weirdest patterns, the weirdest body shapes, and we tried that out. And we saw, hey, are people interested in this version or a cute version, right? And that contrast proved us that the weird version was actually working, right? People thought they looked like rats. They thought they looked funny. The word spread out a little bit more easily. So always try to seek bold discoveries and not micro optimizations early. And then this one is kind of like a little framework that I try to use all the time when launching something, especially consumer related. Don't be in the red zone. So in this chart here, I'm contrasting various ways of how you can show value to users or attract users to a consumer app, right? So at the top here, we have reward, which is contrasted with fear or FOMO. And then on the x-axis here, you have clarity of value contrasted with mystery. There's a natural tendency for people to try to cover it all with the first launch, right? Do something that is both mysterious and showing the value and giving reward to users and inducing FOMO. And in my experience, you end up getting a mix of everything and users get confused. And you don't get a proven result if you land in the middle red zone here. Instead, you should lean into one or two things max in this axis and go all in, right? So you want to dial up, if you're going for rewards, you dial up the rewards and you make an offer that people cannot refuse. If you're inducing mystery, curiosity, be very mysterious, be very curiosity focused, and don't create something meh, right? Don't show your value right away if you're trying to go for curiosity. And that's kind of like what we did with CryptoKitties at first. We had a big community campaign right before that event that I mentioned, the same ETH Waterloo event, where we launched a page. That page was a live stream of cats, real live cats in real time. And we had almost like a competition to find clues. And the person who found clues got a little bit of a reward. That's why I moved CryptoKitties up a little bit. They got one of the first CryptoKitties that we minted, a founder kitty. So they didn't know exactly what the reward was. We were not clear about what CryptoKitties was at the time. And there was a huge mystery that we tried to create with that group of 600 people in the beginning. That's not always the way to go, right? There are different strategies. For example, now with the things we do, we don't go this way as much. We try to focus more on the clarity of value and the reward as two main axes during launches. And then finally, pay attention to everyone walking in all the time, every day. Even if you have 10 users, right? You've got to observe that cohort of people starting to use your product very early on. And then when you have 100 users, same thing. When you have 1,000 users, same thing. And that's how you get to 10,000, 100,000, a million, is if you really understand the behaviors and the psychology of one person, not just numbers on the screen. So really pay attention to everyone walking in the door. So you got to be deliberate, follow these and be deliberate and opinionated, quick to market and get signals early, and have an interesting hook and product. And with CryptoKitties, even doing all of these things, the early experience still sucked, right? And the reason I say this is because of the Ethereum experience I had mentioned a little while ago. We ended up getting more demand than we could handle, more demand than the network could handle, and at the time, it was really not scalable, right? With 10,000 users at the same time, daily users, right? So it's not even that impressive of a number. Transactions were taking 24 hours to complete. So imagine people are trying to breed their cats and waiting for 24 hours to see the result, or buy a cat in the marketplace and waiting 24 hours for that transaction to complete. And on top of that, we had an entire community, because it's mainnet, right? All of the applications are running on on the same network. The entire community pissed at CryptoKitties because CryptoKitties was clogging the entire network. So I remember having evening meetings with Coinbase and the guys at 0x and other organizations trying to help because they were like, you guys are disrupting us as well, right? So it was pretty interesting. And I guess that definitely motivated a lot of attention into Ethereum infrastructure as well. At the time, I think there was 15,000 nodes. I bet that number is tiny comparatively. So that early experience still sucked, but this is from a USV article that talks about how consumer apps inspire progress, and they even use CryptoKitties as one example when they talk about crypto specifically. But this is from 2018, and it's always showing that apps do create this peak in demand momentarily that inspires more infrastructure to be built, right? And this doesn't happen exclusively on crypto. It happened recently with AI, right? Like, what would have been AI without ChatGPT being the consumer product that got launched in 22 and, inspired millions of people and thousands of companies to either pivot or build something on top, and a lot of infrastructure investment happening now, right? So consumer apps really have this power to inspire that CryptoKitties was a small example of. And the other interesting example, even with that experience sucking, which is the issue that we were facing, another interesting example is one from a talk that Jeff Bezos gave back in, I think it was 2003, so it's been 22 years. He talked about this analogy with the washing machine. Has anybody heard of this? So it's the electricity analogy and how that unlocked a new gold rush into appliances. So the killer app that inspired a lot of the infrastructure in electricity was the light bulb, right? So the light bulb was something that everybody wanted once it got invented, and that kicked off a movement to electrify all the cities. So there was a big projects in New York City to bring electricity to the homes because everybody wanted light, right? Everybody wanted the light bulb to be in their homes. So there was a pouring investment into this. They were breaking the streets. They were creating a huge mess to bring that value to users. And people had ceiling sockets basically for their light bulbs. The only thing that a room would have, the only source of electricity would be the light bulb socket. And then the appliances industry started to develop a little bit more. And they invented a lot of the appliances we use today, like the fan, the fridge, or whatever that might be. And one of them was the washing machine. And the washing machine got extremely popular. It was one of the fanciest things you could have in 1908. And the washing machine was this one. You can barely see in the picture, but it was bulky. It was like, you had 2 compartments. You needed to move clothes from one to the next to wash. I don't know exactly how that worked. And the on and off switch had not been invented yet. So it didn't have an on and off switch. You didn't need it. You had a long cable that you would put the washing machine outside because it was super dangerous. It was actually, it would move quite a lot, and it was bulky and noisy. So people would have it on their porch basically and run this long table into the living room and connect the cable into the ceiling socket because that was the only socket in the room, and that's how the washing machine worked. It was not safe, right? People would get their hair tangled with the washing machine maybe, or clothes. It was really hard to use because you had to bring this cable into the living room ceiling, I don't know, maybe step on some stairs or something to connect and disconnect, and there was no on and off button, which made it even less safe. So the value is there, the user experience was terrible, but it still was able to succeed because it inspired so many new innovations in the space, right? And I think the same thing continues to happen in blockchain and other spaces, even when we see problems in the underlying infrastructure. So anyway, CryptoKitties inspired a lot of things happening in the ecosystem, in the community, but also inspired us to continue with that mission, right? So after CryptoKitties, we had the opportunity to work with several important partners and IPs, global IPs. So one of the most well-known products today for Dapper Labs is NBA Top Shot. Has everybody heard of NBA Top Shot and own Top Shot? All right. So Top Shot is a collectible where you can collect video highlights. in the form of a moment. We call them moments. They're cubes that encapsulate important moments of basketball into a digital collectible. So think of trading cards, but on chain, right? So that product ended up launching in 2020. So we had a little bit of a crypto winter, 2019, 2020, and then we launched NBA Top Shot, and that ended up triggering a wave of users that came to the community again and ecosystem from Top Shot, right? So Top Shot ended up attracting over 1 million users, and it became a sensation thanks to both the good value that it provides, because it creates it's a hobby for a lot of people. A lot of people spend a ton of time, myself included, building NBA Top Shot collections, and a lot of people don't. A lot of the users on Top Shot barely know or care as much about crypto. They really love the sport, right? They love basketball, and that's and you
in Top Shot.
Yeah,
Crypto.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we, again, motivated by that same why, right? Which is we want to build entertainment applications that could unlock further usage and mainstream adoption of decentralized apps. And then we also partner up with the NFL, and we launched NFL All Day, which is a similar product where you can build your fandom through a collection of football moments, which is super cool. More recently, we've been working on a product with Disney. It's called Disney Pinnacle, and with Pinnacle, there's this huge pin community, physical pin community that trades in parks, right? And I don't know if any of you have been to Disney World or Disneyland, but you could see them in the parks trading with each other. That's actually the only place they trade. But we saw an opportunity there with Disney to bring that outside of the parks, right? You could carry your collection in your pocket, your pins in your pocket, and you could trade with people 24/7. And these are and we can build things that are not possible in the physical world, right? Like you see here, this pin has parallax, it has a background that is animated. Some of them have video, you can spin them and watch an exclusive clip. So we are able to like extrapolate what a physical collectible can do with a digital version. And Disney Pinnacle is still in closed beta, so it hasn't launched yet, but if any of you want access, just let me know and I can certainly give you access. You can also go to disneypinnacle.com to try it out. The other IP we have, and we haven't brought Mikayla, this is Mikayla, Onchain too much yet, but that's another internal IP from Dapper Labs. Mikayla is a digital influencer, and she's got a ton of followers online already on Instagram and TikTok, over 3 million followers. And we're definitely looking for opportunities to bring Mikayla on chain even more. She has it's a very interesting possibility of AI and crypto integrations. And if you have ideas, hit me up and we'd love to hear them. And then finally, we're back with CryptoKitties again. So I'm kind of closing the loop here because we are investing a ton of our time and attention into building a new game for CryptoKitties, and it's called CryptoKitties All the Zen. It's a Telegram game an idle game where you can play for free, and you just hit that QR code, open the game on your phone, and collect kitties that produce Zen. And the more kitties, the more Zen you get. The more Zen you get, the more kitties you can get. And that experience plays really nicely as well with the original CryptoKitties experience. So the more original kitties you have, the more Zen you get every day as a bonus. So it's a cool game. It's very addicting. My mom plays it, and she plays it every day. She's been playing for over 2 months, and we launched it a few months ago. So I would love to get you all to play it, and let me know what you think as well. And I'll bring up the QR code again in a bit. So anyway, we're investing in all of these consumer apps, and today in 2025, we ask ourselves, do we believe that decentralized applications matter? And to us, the answer is yes. Do we believe that consumer apps, they unlock progress and value and unlock that value that decentralized applications could unlock? And the answer for us is yes. And is there still a lot of upside? And the answer to us is also yes, because in my view, decentralized applications realizing their true potential would mean that every day people are using. You ask Joe on the street and they're using 3 or 4 different apps that are on chain, right? And that's not the case yet. It's still very niche. So all of these points are still very true. So it is the time to build, right? You gotta like I said, be deliberate and opinionated when you're building products, be quick to market and get signals, have an interesting hook in a product. And if you're building today the experience doesn't have to suck anymore, right? Today we have a lot more infrastructure than we didn't have 7 years ago. And today we can build very sleek applications, just like CryptoKitties All the Zen is super responsive and sleek, and you won't have to wait 24 hours for a kitty to breed. And it would still look and feel really, really good and be fully decentralized. There's a viral TikTok going on recently of Timothy Chalamet, that's the actor, yes. And he said something interesting this week, and this is Oscars week, so I thought of putting it here. The classiest thing would be to downplay, just a little bit of context. He was receiving an award for being best male actor, I think. And then he went on stage and he was picking up the trophy. And he said this, he said, the classiest thing for me to do would be to downplay the effort that went into this. But the truth is, I poured everything I had into it. I am really in pursuit of greatness. I know people don't usually talk like that, but I want to be one of the greats. And I thought this was pretty interesting because, looking at the CryptoKitties story, one could tell that story and think, you just launched something randomly and it hit what people wanted. You were lucky, right? Or you were lucky and now you're building similar things and that's it, right? You're just trying to cash grab as much as possible with similar experiences. And that's not the case. The case is that we have a strong why. We are in pursuit of greatness with unlocking that value of decentralized applications. And we're putting a lot of effort into seeking bold discoveries, like I said in the beginning, and trying various things that will unlock the potential through consumer apps. So in my view, it is the right time to build great consumer apps on chain today, and that's what's going to unlock the next phase of users coming on chain and trying out our products. And each one of you have the opportunity here to build something awesome today and be part of this movement. So thank you for your time and thank you for being here. It's been and if I could request one thing would be if you could pull up your phones and scan this QR code. It is pretty safe. It's not going to ask for any private keys.
We'll show some ref links, it'll be all good.
I conveniently added the link to my clan, so you're going to join my clan.
Never too big to shill a ref link.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Arthur.
Yeah.
I just wanted to call out that we have a bunch of exclusive CryptoKitties merch that Arthur overnighted. We have CryptoKitties stickers, all this awesome stuff. So, yeah, once again, thank you. And I wanted to kind of preview as well our next panel. We're talking about building consumer apps.
Oh, nice.
The next panel by Brian, talking about how to build an in-app wallet with sign-on, sponsored gas, like quite literally all the things that consumer apps. So you're in the right place. So once again, thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.